Okay, so today we've got a pretty big job on today. So we're going to wander out of the obs and I'll explain what we're going to do. As you can tell from my get up, the temperature has dropped dramatically. So we're down to about 6 degrees now. The sun's actually trying to get through, so it should warm up fairly fast. Trusty guard dogs outside. Right, what we're doing today is we are taking off the Skywatcher and replacing this with a Takahashi 106 and a whole new imaging train, all Starlight Express. So adaptive optics, off-axis guide camera, basically, yeah. So we're not going to film stripping this down because that will just be boring for everybody. So we're going to do a time lapse of ripping this apart and then we'll set it all up and film the rebuild, which will be far more interesting. So the building of the 106, the focuser, getting all the camera train all sorted. We'll film all that and then we'll bring it all in here and whack it back on and set it all up. And then we'll do some subsequent videos on connecting the gear, getting it all working. So yeah, so you get a whole insight of how and why, what we do to get all this stuff working and talking. Happy days. Next part of the jigsaw is to fit the lakeside focuser. Because obviously it's remote, so we'll need a way of focusing it remotely. And for that we use a varying array of focusers, but on this occasion we've got the lakeside. The lakeside is supplied now and owned by First Light Optics. So this is the go-to for these. We've got loads of these on site and we very, very rarely see any problems. So can highly recommend the lakeside. All of the stuff actually, so all of the Starlight gear and the Takahashi, all from First Light Optics. So yeah, the go-to place for telescope equipment. So okay, let's move on. First things first, we've got the motor. This is the thing that does all the driving. We've got the bracket to fit the motor, and we've got an extender which extends the shaft that comes out of the original focuser, and then a bag of varying screws to screw this lot together. So first things first, we need to remove the original wheel, which we'll do. Two nuts in those, two little grub screws. Pull the shaft off. Put that to one side. We're not going to be using that again on this occasion. So as you can see, there's two flat sides on this shaft for the Takahashi, which is good because there's a grub screw that locks onto that shaft. Now these grub screws are renowned for coming undone and causing problems. So what we do, or what I do, is I actually put a little bit of Loctite on those to hold them in place. So it's basically take the grub screw out, and this does stop it from coming undone. Won't stop you from undoing it, but it will stop it from coming undone. So it's just a thread lock, any mechanics use, readily available in any car store, Halfords. Little tiny drop on there. Thread that back in. And this will just stop it from working its own way loose, which is what happens to them. And it's a real pain when it does, because then you've got to recalibrate, reset. So this cures the problem. Nice and simple. That's that. So we just leave that in there. Put the lid back on that, shove to one side. Okay, so we've now got our focusing knob, the original one, off. Then this bracket will fit, will take the place of these two screws. So we undo those two. take them out and keep all these bits together. You don't want to throw these away because obviously they're the original parts for the Takahashi focuser. So if you ever want to, you know, if you're putting the scope back to as it was, you'd need these bits and pieces. And that bracket will fit over that. So the next thing to go on is the shaft. Now when you put these on, you need to make sure that it doesn't rub on the back side of the focuser unit, so which is inside here. So the best way of doing it is just to put it all the way on. Just tighten down the grub screw so you know it's on the flat. You can feel it's on the flat, and then just pull it back a tiny bit. And then just do it up. You don't have to do it up tight just yet. And then you can feel that that rotates easy and it's not rubbing on the back face. That's that. You need an Allen key that really fits these well. That one. Okay, next thing. So then we put on the motor. The same again, you see that there's a flat face to the shaft, which will go where the grub screw is. And again, if you just put it on all the way, just pull it back a little bit, do up the shaft so you know it's on that flat, then just nip it up. And that will rotate, obviously, with the shaft now. It won't do when the bracket's on. Oh, schoolboy error. Didn't really see me do that. Obviously, the bracket goes on first because this goes through the shaft. That was a bit of a schoolboy error. So, what we need to do is turn the shaft around so you can see the Allen keys through the front side, because you won't be able to get the Allen key in there. Put the shaft on. That'll go through the middle of there. Just leave that dangling for a minute. We'll get the two long screws in to hold this bracket in place. Do up, undo. That's how it is. Just nip these down so they're not tight. You don't want them tight. You just want it sitting all loose for a minute. Like that. There we go. And then just double check that it's running free, which it is. That the shaft runs free, which it does. Now you've got to marry the shaft up with the Allen key. Which just goes in there. Once you've found the flat, so you can turn this round still. So find the flat shaft which it's on. Make sure there's a little bit of a free gap. You don't want it rubbing against the metal. Okay, which we've got. You can see if it rotates freely, which it does. We're just going to release that just a tad more. There we go. So that all spins okay. Remember, this is going to be bolted to this. So at the minute, you just want to make sure it rotates and it's all in line, which it is. So it's in line with the shaft. Now, do these up a bit tighter. And the way to make sure that they're tight, you do need to make you don't want to rip the thread, but you just want to feel that they're nice and in there, which they are. Okay, so now we've got the bracket runs free. The motor is spinning free, so we know that's pretty good. Next thing to do is screw the motor to the bracket. And for that, in the kit, you find little tiny screws and washers that, when you've got fat fingers like I have, are a bit of a pain, but there you go. So they all go in there. A little nut on the back. That's one in place. And then on the back, a washer and a nut. So this is, yeah, fiddly stuff, fiddly little jobs these are, but the better you get these all lined up, you won't get any problems in the future, so it makes a whole heap of difference. So we can tell that's nice. The focuser runs all nice, we're happy there. It's all loose, so you know it's not under any stress. Then we can do everything else. So you just tighten these down just a touch. It all sits flat, and then lock all these down. These are a little bit fiddly, but they work really well. We don't get any problems, so quite happy to mess around. That's good. Tighten these two down. Again, don't over tighten anything. They've got just come to a firm stop. If you over tighten too much, you'll end up ripping the thread out, and that'll be the focuser knackered then. So that's done. That's good. Then we've got the plug. The plug just sits underneath there like that, and again is screwed down. So make sure on these ones you put the screws obviously through that way, so you've got the head, otherwise you won't get the plug, the other part of the plug on. And again, screws and washers. These ones are doubly fiddly because they are underneath. And there we go. We just want to get something in there to wedge the screw. There we go, that's one. Take that out. And two. So again, just wedge the nut. There we go. So, as you can see, we've now got our motor, bracket, all bolted down. The grub screws are done up. It can't move now because obviously the motor's not moving. So once this power goes to that and it's connected and calibrated, then it will move. For the minute, that's about all we can do with the telescope setup. The next thing will be to take this in, put it onto the mount, and start assembling the bits and pieces, and then a big wire up. So okay, so we'll take this in and on to the next bit of the job.